Their car broke down,
Matt, look out!
so they had no other option but to take shelter in an isolated farm. They were grateful for this transitory relief, not realizing it was about to cost them gravely.
What are you doing?
Welcome back to Paramount Recapped. I don't have many subscribers, but your single comment is a ray of hope to motivate me.
For me! No!
The story kicks off with a married couple, Matt and Rachel, driving through the countryside. Rachel's pregnant and seems pretty far along. They're just trying to get somewhere, and the drive is calm at first. But soon, things go off track, literally. As they're cruising down the road, Matt notices that the way ahead is blocked. There's some kind of construction going on, and the road's been closed off. He doesn't think much of it and follows the detour signs. Unfortunately, he's a little too distracted and doesn't realize there's a huge tree lying across the new path. He slams right into it. Their car gets badly banged up, and now they're stuck on the edge of a forested area, totally away from town or any main road. Matt tries to use his phone to call for help, but guess what? No signal. Not even a single bar. Things are starting to get tense. As they figure out what to do, Matt notices a farmhouse way out in the distance, maybe a 15-minute walk away. Since they're out of options, they decide to head toward it. While making their way to the house, they spot a warning sign. It clearly says that the land is private property and trespassing is not allowed. But given their situation, they choose to ignore it and keep walking. Not long after stepping onto the property, a man in a pickup truck pulls up. He doesn't look too happy to see strangers walking through his land. He stops and gets out of the truck, immediately questioning what they're doing there. Matt tries to explain everything: the car crash, the lack of phone signal, and the fact that Rachel's pregnant. But the guy isn't buying it. He tells him to leave. Things take a weird turn when he hears that Rachel's expecting a baby boy. The man's whole attitude flips. Suddenly, he's all friendly and welcoming. He introduces himself as Bobby and even tells his wife, Agnes, that they've got company. At first, Agnes isn't thrilled about unexpected guests. But the moment Bobby tells her Rachel is pregnant with a baby boy, she lights up. Her attitude changes just like Bobby's, and she eagerly invites them to stay. Matt and Rachel try to explain they just want to use a phone. They don't want to inconvenience anyone. But Bobby tells them their phone line is out of order because of the storm, and they're waiting on someone to fix it. He insists they stay for a bit to rest. On the way up to the house, Rachel sees a girl in black watching them from a distance. The girl doesn't say anything, just stares. It gives Rachel a weird feeling, but she doesn't say much. Once they get to the house, Bobby introduces them to Agnes properly, along with two boys, Luke and David. Agnes tells the boys to help carry the couple's bags, and then shows them to a room where they can spend the night. Rachel and Matt are surprised at how kind the hosts have suddenly become, considering they only needed to borrow a phone. But there's a strange feeling they can't quite shake off. Unbeknownst to them, Agnes is eavesdropping on their conversation from just outside the door. Later, Rachel catches sight of that same girl in black again, which freaks her out. She tells Matt, but when he checks, there's no one around. Matt thinks she's just tired and tells her to take it easy. That evening, they're invited to dinner with the whole family. During dinner, Rachel sees a photo of Bobby and Agnes with the girl she saw earlier. Curious, she asks who the girl is. Agnes says her name is Faith and that she's their youngest. Oddly enough, Faith isn't joining them for dinner. Then Agnes casually mentions that all three kids, Faith, Luke, and David, are adopted. She claims they couldn't have children naturally and that God gave them these kids instead. As the meal continues, Bobby suddenly loses his temper and starts yelling at one of the boys, which completely ruins the mood. After dinner, the couple returns to their room. Rachel's gut tells her that something is very wrong with this family. She hasn't seen Faith around properly, and the whole vibe is off. She tells Matt they should leave in the morning. Just then, they get this creepy feeling that someone's listening to them from outside the door. Matt opens it, but no one's there. He assumes it's just the wind or something, and seeing how tired Rachel is, he helps her go to bed. The next morning, Rachel wakes up to the sound of crying. She turns over and realizes Matt's not in bed anymore. She gets up and sees the same girl, Faith, crying and saying her parents are dead. She introduces herself and explains what happened. But before Rachel can react, she jolts awake. It was just a dream, or maybe a warning. After waking up, Rachel remembers the girl's name was Ellie Adams. That triggers a memory. Ellie Adams was a girl whose whole family went missing. She's been all over the news for months. Rachel is now convinced that the family they're staying with had something to do with Ellie's disappearance. And if she's right, That means Faith is really Ellie. Panicked, Rachel urges Matt to leave immediately. They quietly try to sneak out, heading toward the front door. But the door is locked. Matt finds a key, but before he can use it, it falls. Suddenly, Bobby shows up behind them. Matt tells him they're going to leave and won't cause any trouble. Bobby just stands there, silent and eerie. As they step outside, they see Luke and David already waiting for them, and they're armed. Without warning, David knocks Matt out, and Bobby strikes Rachel, causing her to pass out too. Rachel wakes up, dazed and in pain. She realizes her hands are chained. She asks where Matt is. Agnes casually tells her Matt's in a better place. Outside, Luke and David are digging a grave. They undress Matt, preparing to bury him. Just as Luke is about to finish him off, David suggests burying him alive instead. Luke agrees, tossing Matt's cigarettes and lighter into the makeshift coffin like some kind of sick joke. Meanwhile, back inside, Rachel goes into labor. Agnes surprisingly helps deliver the baby. But the baby turns out to be a girl, not the boy they were hoping for. That seems to disappoint Agnes. She leaves Rachel alone with a newborn and steps outside. Rachel, completely drained but still alert, manages to free her hands. She grabs a cross hanging nearby and waits, pretending nothing's wrong as she hears Agnes approaching again. Rachel, who's completely over the madness, finally snaps and strikes Agnes out of frustration. But her small act of rebellion doesn't last long. Before she knows it, the rest of the twisted family shows up. They quickly overpower her and tie her up again using thick plastic cable ties around both her wrists and ankles, making sure she can't move an inch. During this moment, Agnes decides it's the perfect time to confess something horrifying. She proudly claims that she ended Faith's parents' lives in the name of her twisted version of Faith. She says she's saving the kid she adopted from what she believes is a corrupt and evil world. According to her, Rachel and other normal parents are poisoned by immoral values and don't deserve to raise children. Agnes then muzzles Rachel so she can't speak or scream and has her dragged into an old hay-filled shed. Things get worse when Agnes forcefully pumps milk from Rachel's body, treating her more like livestock than a person. Meanwhile, somewhere underground, Matt finally opens his eyes. He's dazed, barely able to breathe. He flicks on his lighter, trying to figure out where the hell he is. As the light flickers, he notices the rough wooden walls around him and dirt squeezing through the cracks. Then it hits him. He's been buried in some kind of box or crate. He's trapped underground. Panicking but determined, Matt uses everything he can, his fists, elbows, and whatever strength he has, to break a side of the crate. After what feels like forever, he busts it open and crawls through the dirt, finally breaking the surface, gasping for air. He's completely naked and confused, with no idea where he's ended up. Wandering through unfamiliar woods, Matt tries to find help or at least some sign of people. Eventually, he finds a small waterfall and cleans himself up the best he can. Near the stream, he stumbles upon a piece of cloth, which he quickly uses to cover himself. Back at the shed, Rachel is struggling like crazy to get free. Her wrists are sore and her strength is fading. Exhausted, she ends up falling asleep. Later, she wakes to the sound of someone bringing food and water. To her shock, it's the girl she'd seen before, the one known as Faith. But Rachel now knows her real name is Ellie Adams. Rachel begs Ellie to help her escape. She pleads for anything, a tool, a key, a way out. But Ellie doesn't say a word. She just turns around and silently walks away, leaving Rachel alone again. The story shifts back to Matt, who keeps moving through the woods in hopes of finding a road. Eventually, he sees a campsite with two men sitting by a fire. Desperate, Matt approaches them and explains everything. The kidnapping, the psycho family, the buried coffin. But the men take one look at his disheveled appearance and make fun of him. They assume he's just some drunk weirdo making up stories. Realizing they're not going to help, Matt fights them both. After knocking them out, he takes their clothes and gives them a deal. He hands them a knife so they can cut themselves loose later, but only if they agree to point him toward the nearest road. Back at the creepy farmhouse, Luke and David go to talk to Agnes in the baby's room. It's clear that she's disappointed the baby turned out to be a girl. They offer a twisted solution. They'll sleep with Rachel so she can have another baby, hopefully a boy. They say it must be God's will. Disgusted and furious, Agnes kicks them out of the room. But the two boys, driven by disturbing thoughts, head over to the hay shed anyway, where Rachel is still tied up. Just before they can do anything, Matt returns. With Ellie's help, he finds Rachel just in time. He storms in and uses a metal pipe to beat both Luke and David to death. Rachel breaks down in relief when she sees Matt alive. She tells him the baby is a girl. Matt smiles at the news, then smashes the chains holding her down with the pipe. The noise catches Agnes' attention, and she sends Bobby to investigate. At the same time, Ellie tries to distract Agnes. Matt and Rachel attempt to slip out of the shed, but Bobby's already waiting for them outside with a gun. Thinking fast, Matt shields Rachel and takes the bullet himself. Rachel screams as Bobby knocks her out with the butt of his rifle. Rachel wakes up tied up again in the shed. But this time, she sees Ellie also chained nearby. Ellie struggles to break free. Rachel watches as she slowly begins to loosen the bricks that are part of the structure holding the chains. Both girls finally succeed in breaking out. Back at the house, Bobby finds Agnes putting makeup on Luke and David's corpses, still pretending they're alive. Bobby tells her it's time to let go. Later, they bury the boys in a field near 3 wooden crosses. Agnes, still clinging to denial, stays behind at the graves while Bobby walks away. Meanwhile, Rachel and Ellie sneak into the house and quietly retrieve the baby. Rachel gets emotional seeing her daughter safe, but Bobby returns home just in time. They quickly hide in a closet. Bobby checks the baby, then picks up the breast pump and leaves. When he arrives at the shed and sees Rachel gone, he grabs his gun and rushes back to the house. Rachel, who's done hiding, stands her ground. She tells Bobby she wants to feed the baby directly. Bobby agrees, not realizing she's stalling. Rachel pulls a knife hidden in a cloth and stabs Bobby, finally killing him. She rushes to find his phone and calls the police. But Agnes arrives home and immediately senses something's wrong. She notices the shed key left in the lock, grabs a gun, and heads outside. Not long after, she rides off on a tractor, clearly planning something. Rachel and Ellie, now armed, try to escape in the car, but can't find the keys. That's when they realize Agnes is watching them. She forces Rachel out of the car at gunpoint, making her leave the baby with Ellie. A chaotic gunfight erupts. Rachel takes bullets to her arms and legs, but refuses to let Agnes take her daughter. She musters the last of her strength and slams Agnes's head against the ground over and over until she finally stops moving. Police and ambulances arrive. As medics treat Rachel, officers begin asking questions. But before Rachel can answer, Agnes, somehow still alive, shows up behind the ambulance with a gun. Luckily, the cops act fast and shoot her before she can fire. One officer asks about Ellie Adams, the girl Rachel had mentioned earlier. But as they turn to look, Ellie has vanished. It hits Rachel. Ellie was never really there. The girl she saw was just the ghost of Ellie, whose body lies under one of the 3 crosses they passed earlier. Faith Fairbairn was her fake name, but her real name was Ellie Adams. The film closes with Rachel and her baby finally in an ambulance, on their way to safety, leaving behind the nightmare they barely survived.